Go.
Welcome to the Standards Michigan Weekly Focus teleconference, where the door is open to discuss the week's work, but we also expand upon the underlying philosophy and strategy that guides that work. We schedule these open teleconferences at a time when our work week winds down and when our more reflective discussions do not crowd our production calendars, what we do to write code and get votes in the middle part of the week. Our streaming advocacy work is focused on strengthening the voice of the user interest, the end market stakeholder, or as we like to say, the user-owner final fiduciary. In the education facilities industry, the end market stakeholder works to guarantee a safe and sustainable environment. This sets the stage for the opportunities the education industry provides for our nation's college students, the facilities our faculty need to carry out their research, as well as being the setting for healthcare delivery, athletic events, and ultimately a central element in state and local brand identity. We estimate that of the $300 billion the education industry spends on building construction, operations and maintenance, energy and safety, over half is governed by the business and technical standards accredited by ANSI. We have explained on our Standards Michigan website that apart from what the University of Michigan started 20 years ago, most of the education facilities industry is not very active in the development of business and technical standards. Any regulatory advocacy capability has been directed toward curriculum, state appropriations, and other relationships with government, frequently detailed in Office of Management and Budget circulars, where our industry does not seem to advocate. At this time, I would like to introduce who is on our call today. I'm Christine Fisher with the University of Michigan. We also have Mike Anthony, who is leading the Standards Michigan project. Good morning, Mike.
Hi there, Christine. I think we just saw Jim Ginnity pop in.
Oh, terrific. We also have Jim Ginnity with the University of Michigan as well. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Christine. Good morning, Michael.
And also on our call from Los Angeles is Mike Toner, our video production expert. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Yvonne.
I like to call.
Perfect. Thank you all for
I like to call him our man
attending.
in LA. We have a man in LA. Everyone should have one.
That's correct. Before I turn the call over to Mike Anthony, we would like to remind the facility constituencies in our industry, including the university-affiliated healthcare systems, to participate in the U.S. Census Department surveys. Although we will not have an expert from the Census Bureau on the call today, we have been in communication with that department recently. We will have to schedule expertise from the Census Bureau during another part of the week, and perhaps contingent upon administrative regulations at the Commerce Department, we'll be able to post a video blog on the subject of how the education industry number is derived before next month's construction update. On today's teleconference webpage, you'll find a link describing how the Census Department develops their estimates. As with all statistical work, much depends upon respondent surveys. Mike?
We do our best to be fastidious about our avoided cost claims. So every month we examine the U.S. Census Bureau's release of the monthly value of construction put in place for its estimate of the construction spend rate by the education facilities industry. Remember that this is looking backward 2 months. So at the moment there's no generally accepted accounting principles for counting something that does not happen. So when you're claiming avoided costs on the order of 1 to 10 billion, well above the annual budget of most school districts, colleges, and all but a few research universities, you need every corroborating number available to set up the broad contours of a probable region where avoided cost lies, even if you're only doing it in powers of 10. So every month we start with the U.S. Census Bureau number as the high end and then work our way backward, applying several rules of thumb. And we use these numbers known to construction industry professionals for first cost estimates. We use numbers from our own per square foot costs for operations, maintenance, and security. We also use numbers available from the National Center for Education Statistics, IBIS World Industry Research, American School and University, and Engineering News Records. So we welcome here the largest national conversation on avoided costs driven by assertive advocacy and ANSI standards, and all the other education industry consulting companies who prepare benchmarking studies for individual institutions, trade associations, state agencies, and capital markets. So we're looking now at the May construction report. It was released, was it Monday? Oh, excuse me, it was last Friday, rather. And we'll once again pick through it for clues about the magnitude and the direction of construction spend for what is usually revealed as the largest non-residential building construction market in the United States. So I'm going to drop out of Prezi for a moment so you can see the actual report. This is the actual report, and what you're going to see here is that, and I'll cut back to the Prezi, but when I make the claim that we're the largest non-residential building construction market in the United States, I want to make it clear how we come to that conclusion. I'm going to have to blow this up a little bit. Let's take it up so you can see who else we're looking at. So I'll get my little pointer going. So if you look at education here, it comes in at 84 billion. If you look at another number that's larger than that, that's electrical power. That would be the utility industry. And if you look at highway and street, that's 89 billion. So those, both power and highway and street, are above us. Now, residential construction, of course, is very high. Anybody who's flown on an airplane will realize that the residential construction market is quite a bit larger, 458 billion, and we are about a fifth of that. But that much said, if you look at even the office buildings, you think there's a lot of office buildings out there. It turns out that that market isn't as large as ours. This is K-12 school districts, colleges, and universities. I believe colleges and universities are probably somewhere half of this, maybe even, I want to say maybe below 20 billion of new construction renovations every year. But when we make this statement, I wanted people to understand that if you throw out residential and you throw out the utility industry and the road building industry, which is roughly the same size as ours, by the way, that's how we come to the claim that the education industry is the largest non-residential building construction market in the United States. So what I'll probably do here, so I wanted to let you, since I'm on this page here, it's divided up. One thing, once you've learned to look at this thing, and we've stared at this for quite a while, you understand that this number over here is the sum of what's going on in private and total. So the total construction, and then there's total private construction, and there's total public construction. If we go back to our Prezi then, you'll see that we make that we make that claim. What they've done for us, now remember, this is just public construction. If you look at private construction, they actually don't break it up here. So what we do is we look at the number, this number here, plus the number over here to get to that. So let's get a little bit closer, and I'm going to put us back in presentation mode, so it might be a little bit easier to zoom in. So this number, the 84.3 billion number there, is the sum of 32 and healthcare, 66.7 billion, and what I guess I covered it up here at 17.65. We will often place university-affiliated hospitals in public construction. So as you can see that there might be other public hospitals, we understand that, but there are a fair number of university-affiliated healthcare systems, and so that's where that comes from. We could take a guess that maybe half of this number is probably the construction of healthcare facilities, new clinics, large medical centers. We follow them, and we try to collaborate with other organizations like the American Society of Healthcare Engineers, but there's so much going on that maybe they're as busy as we are following and trying to craft these regulations. So that much said, let's move on to giving this a little bit of context. what I like to do here, it looks like I might have missed, I would like people to understand when we're dealing with $85 billion of construction spend, I want people to understand that that's roughly 5 times the amount of money we spend on space exploration. Where are we getting these numbers? We have a subscription to a marketing organization, a market research organization called IBISWorld. And what we do here, you'll have to look up here to take a look at it. So they break up the markets according to the Standard Industrial Code. Some of you may be familiar with the Department of Commerce. So if we run through these industries, we can see in 2015, for example, all the money coming in was $461 million. They break it up between wages and then everything else. Everything else would be facilities, energy, security, administration, all that. So let's go to another, if we go to another report, this is public schools. Public schools is $635 billion. I guess it makes sense. Maybe they're $200 billion more. They're growing. They're not growing. We're growing, but they're not growing. Private schools, obviously much less, but they are growing at 1.2%. If you look at community colleges, they're not. They seem to be shrinking. They're at 60.1 billion coming in. For-profit universities, a significant segment, and they're growing actually faster than any part of the education industry. And so when you rack these all up and you just strip out labor, what's left? So we took the top line number they have, and we stripped out all labor, and we added it up. We get about 1.6 billion. Again, that includes furniture, energy, security, administration, electricians, custodial. That's where that number comes from. So when you look at, excuse me, that was the last, when did I do that one? That was 2013. And as you may have to do a 2016 update on this. But what I'm trying to convey here is that we're looking at increase over time. This is the same numbers updated from the IBIS reports. We rack them up again, and we find that the costs have gone up. And it turns out it's about a 6% increase in cost from between 2013 and 2015, about 3% per year increase in cost. That number becomes important because part of that 3% we think we've been able to press down on. We could have a longer discussion about how it is that these costs end up coming up. A lot of it's complexity cost, safety cost, security cost. That's a whole different teleconference about how these, what the nature of what the upward pressure is. Suffice to say, if you go to our blog site, you'll see how those costs are raised, and as you see, we try to place downward pressure on them. So we'll often use a shorthand to say that roughly we're dealing with a $300 billion industry, and we break it up this way. We look at all of our costs, and then we're also going to include healthcare in this as well, because there are a number of academic hospitals in the mix. You'll find these numbers corroborated in other trade journals. 300 billion seems to come up repeatedly. Previous teleconferences we did cover that. Willing to cover that individually if any business officer would like to more detail on that. So all that said, we'd like to point out that the Facilities and Operations is a Fortune 2.5 company. It's larger than Chevron, smaller than Exxon, and the 85 billion is roughly, it's a little bit less than the revised annual revenue of Microsoft Corporation. So said another way, we're building at a rate of about slightly less than Microsoft's annual construction, annual revenue. So we have a number of ways of looking at this from the microeconomic view. One of them is what we would call the Robin Report, named after my boss, where we postulate a building which is a general classroom building. I want to zoom out a bit on this so you can see a little bit more about what we do. So we look at these different code wins. We have a general policy of not tooting our horn too much on this, out of respect for standards developers and also respect for the people who propose them. Many times they are honest proposals to well-meaning proposals, let's put it that way. But at other times, they're well-meaning market-making proposals. That happens with predictable frequency. I'll only say that you have to have tenure in this space to know how much it's happening. I will say that it's happening more than once a day. I'll say that much. And whether that's well-meaning or whether that's market-making, you can make the decision. But we looked at a $50 million general office building. We looked how all this stuff adds and subtracts. One thing that we cannot really, we can't control, we don't know we know that we've reduced risk, but we can't really quantify that. As I started out saying, it's hard to quantify something that doesn't happen. Also, we struggle with culture change, just like every industry. We have code changes, but it takes a while for people to understand them, to not be afraid of them, and that's just the nature of technology. So this is one tool we use to try to check ourselves at the microeconomic level. And we find that when we add things up, we're on the order of we're taking about 3%. I think this is conservative. I always like to point out that the Building Owners and Managers Association claim about 7% avoided costs by just pushing back on what we call regulatory excess generically. We have another tool we use, which is the Hansen chart, named after my colleague Will Hansen. What we try to describe here is how all these so-called code wins stack up over time. We know that they don't all occur at the same time. They're adopted. They have to infiltrate the culture, but as best we can, we try to take the more significant ones, and these are some of the significant ones. Now, this is going to be updated because we have recently rolled back some excesses on lighting controls. Lighting is about 40% of a building's energy budget, for example. And so it's very vulnerable to what I'll call market-making activities, and sometimes we simply call them out on it, and the committee agreed. They just needed somebody to say no, and we did, and we got it. So it's a pretty significant one. We cover that elsewhere. Okay, so that's the Hansen chart, and more recently, we're developing what we call a trustees report or regents report. This is where we go into a university to which is unnamed. Now, let's be frank about it. It's the University of Michigan, and we went through every building and every building project. You can't see the sheet here, but we went through the past 20 years of code advocacy and move them forward. And what you can see down here is how we've taken all the code wins and put that through every building, and still we seem to run into this number of 2.5%. So we believe that on our we're spending about somewhere between, let's just say, $750 million in construction, and of that $750 million, we are renovating about 50 million of that. The rest is new capital projects that are bonded, that everybody can get a bond on the open market. And so we believe that, again, we keep seeing this number no matter what we do. It doesn't include quality improvement. It doesn't include the risk, lower risk or risk management, but that this is this new tool. This is a project, we use $750 million here for the University of Michigan. So we believe that other universities can do much the same. I have this fantasy that we could make this usable for the rest of the industry, but for the moment it's still a work in progress for us. And it's something that you basically need a cadre of financial people to deal with almost every day. There's that much moving, at least at the University of Michigan. So that's kind of it. I have a small audience here, and Christine, Mike, Jim, anything missed? Anything you want to add? Anything I shouldn't have said?
I think the analysis that we do on this lends itself well to supporting the business case for Standards Michigan. So it's really helpful to review it monthly and realize what the actual magnitude of this industry is.
Well, that's nice of you to say. We think we do this every month, of course, almost every month. We think we get a little bit better and more responsive to some of the questions that have come over in the past 30 days. But as I like to say, it is the largest national conversation on this particular topic. There's a lot of good organizations, good magazines, American School and University for one of them, College Management and Planning, but they're not dealing with it. They have a different business model, and I'm knowing that we get about 50 to 100 views on these every month. I know that somebody's looking at it, so that's kind of it. Unless there's any questions, you're welcome to close this one out, Christine.
I'm fine, thank you, Michael. Again, this is always nice to hear this information. It's good to know that we're a good part of the business out there, so thanks again.
Okay, well, terrific. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Some housekeeping before we close the call. We want everyone to remember that our regularly scheduled Open Door teleconference call will be next Wednesday, July 13th, 11 to 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time. The link to the call-in numbers will be available on our event calendar, which is located on our blog site. So again, thank you very much, and we hope to see you next Wednesday as well as any future Wednesdays for these open conferences. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great day.